What is it about human nature that we just don't want to admit?
Well, first of all, we don't want to admit where we came from, our primitive roots, that we are animals, that before we invented language, we were living like any other animal in the outdoors, right? And I remember one day I was in Sydney, Australia, about 10, 12 years ago, and they had this amazing zoo. I hate zoos because I'm an animal lover and I think zoos are like prisons. But I wanted to see the strange exotic animals there. And they had this amazing chimpanzee compound, right? Where the chimpanzees could kind of roam around freely. And I was fascinated, and I sat there for like 2 hours because it was like watching an office in Manhattan or something, where there was the alpha male and all the other males were kind of following behind him, like the CEO of a company. And I was looking around and I noticed all the people were like giggling and they were so embarrassed and they couldn't, they were laughing. That was their reaction because it made them so uncomfortable to see this animal that's so much like a human being, but is also still an animal. They were just so uncomfortable by it. It made me realize that we're very, very uncomfortable with that aspect of ourselves, right? The part that we can't really control so much, that isn't logical, that isn't rational, that isn't clean, doesn't, all these civilized things. So we're in deep denial of our animal roots, but we're also in denial of our own nature. So we want to imagine ourselves to be these kind of saintly, moral, rational creatures, always thinking about what's good for other people, and it's just a fairy tale. That's not the world as it is. It's the world more like I described in the 48 Laws of Power, where people are manipulative, where people are playing games. Not everyone, but everyone has a manipulative side. Everyone has a dark side. We actually are deeply irrational creatures. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to admit the parts of ourself that reflect this kind of animal nature, our irrationality, our aggression, the envy that we feel towards other people. It's always other people who are like that. So I give the example of narcissism, and I try to make the point in the book. In narcissism, I make the point that everybody's self-absorbed. When you're reading a book and you see your birthday happens to be there, it's just a fact, you're like, whoa, that's my birthday, because it's you, your astrological sign, that's me. We all are interested in ourselves. We're all self-absorbed, right? And when somebody suddenly talks about us, our ears prick up. I'm not moralizing it. It's just the truth. It's me. It's everyone. We don't want to admit it. It's always somebody else. It's always Donald Trump who's a narcissist. It's always Elon Musk who's a narcissist. Everybody has narcissistic tendencies. That's human nature, and we want to deny it.
And should we be aspiring to not be narcissists? Or does one just accept their narcissistic tendencies and lean into it? Because much of what I read in the book about power is how narcissism seems to get you ahead to some degree.
That's debatable. But
I mean, look at some of the people that we've been talking about that have reached the very top of the professional pyramid in life. The presidents and such. They've got narcissistic traits, and it seems
sure, and some of them are kind of what I call deep narcissists who are very problematic, and some of them are healthy narcissists. So a lot of artists are what I would call a healthy narcissist. So a lot of our artists aren't necessarily the best people, right? They're not often, you wouldn't maybe want to be their friend. They're maybe not the most faithful person as far as a partner is concerned. But they put all of that narcissistic energy into their work, and they create beautiful things that contribute to humanity. Steve Jobs was not a very nice person, right? He was very aggressive, he was very assertive, and he was a control freak. But look what he created, okay? That's healthy narcissism. What's the first thing they tell you in AA? I've not been in AA, but I know it. It's admitting that you're an alcoholic.
Okay.
If you can't admit you're an alcoholic, how are you ever going to stop being an alcoholic? You first have to admit it. So if you want to stop being a narcissist, you have to get on your hands and knees and admit that you are a narcissist. Because if you deny it and you say everybody else is, if you can't look inward, how can you ever change that? And even the most saintly person on this planet, the Mahatma Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, they had definite, strong narcissistic tendencies. There are no saints in this world. Everybody have these tendencies. So get off your high horse, look inward, and see those traits that are narcissistic within you.
What if I'm dealing with a narcissist?
Well, who isn't? In this world today, you're always dealing with a narcissist.
What do I do about that? Because I was thinking about some of the laws in your book where you say things like don't outshine the master.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with a narcissist, should I hide my strengths and my weaknesses in order to sort of pander to them and not outshine them?
Yes, but as part of law number 1 is, this is the great thing about being a human being. You can do 2 things at once. You can be consciously playing the game of, I'm not going to outshine him because he or she's going to fire me because I'm going to make them feel insecure. But at the same time, in my head, I'm going, that person isn't better than me. They don't deserve their position. They're actually kind of incompetent and stupid. And someday, by being loyal and learning from them, I'm going to rise up, and I'm being smart because I'm a social animal. And then at that point, I can just say, get away from me. I don't need you anymore. I'm better than you. You can outshine them, but you play the game. But the worst thing is if you internalize it and go, I actually am inferior. I'm not going to outshine because I'm not a good person. I don't deserve it. And then you've internalized this sense of inferiority, and it's going to haunt you the rest of your life. So you can play both sides of the game at the same time.
You talk about acting in life to get ahead. Do we have to be actors, in your view?
Well, this is where I start getting a little bit cranky, Stephen, because everybody's an actor, right?
Nobody admits it, though.
When you're 3 years old, you're already acting, right? You're crying because you're trying to get your parents' attention. You're making trouble with your siblings because you're trying to get something that you want. You're learning to be manipulative. Children are very manipulative. Children are consummate actors. They learn that they can get what they want by behaving a certain way. If I'm an angel, mommy will give me this, that, and the other thing, even though I know I'm not an angel. We are a social animal, and we have words, and we have language. And with words and language, we can say one thing and be another. We can lie. We can deceive. We can tell people, I loved your screenplay. You were fantastic in the movie. Man, you're looking so great today. We don't mean any of it. But we can do that because we have words, and we can lie about that. We are all actors. If everyone went around saying exactly what they felt about the other person, no one would ever get along. We would have killed ourselves off by now. You're always telling the boss the things that they want to hear. You're always telling your partner. You're always kind of hedging exactly what you feel. You're an actor. I don't understand what's so complicated about that. I don't understand why people can't see that they're every day of their life. And in another instance, you're never the same with 2 different people. The way you are in front of your father, as you are in front of your son or in front of a colleague, you're a completely different person. Your jokes are different. Your body language is different. You're an actor, okay? Some people are good at it. Some people aren't, but you're an actor.
Well, I think at the root of this is there's something ugly about being manipulation, lying, acting. So no one would want to volunteer that they are doing that. But from what I'm inferring from what you said is that in order to get ahead in life, you're going to need to lie a little bit, manipulate, and act.
Well, you are. It's not like you need to be. You are doing that. Even though you may not admit it, you are doing that. You see, the thing is, it's getting back to that scene at the Sydney Zoo where people are deeply uncomfortable with these aspects of their own character and their own personality. And I don't want you to go around thinking, God, it's great to be manipulative. It's great to just screw people over and get what I want and not care about them. No. But it's better to admit that you are capable of manipulation, that you do it often unconsciously and often in a passive-aggressive manner. It's better to admit it, and it's better to be able to play the game when you have to, like always say less than necessary. It's going to save you a lot of pain. You don't have to go around all your life practicing these things. I don't think you want to.
What was that law?
Always say less than necessary.
Law
number 4.
Can you explain that one to me?
In looking at powerful people, the person who talks less always gives off a greater aura of power than the people that are yabbering all the time, that are talking, that can't control their tongue. And the idea is, if you can't control your mouth, if you just keep talking and talking, it gives an aura to other people that you can't control anything else. You have no self-control. And that is a very unpowerful aura. And obviously, the more you talk, the more you are prone to say something kind of stupid and irrational that you're going to regret. And so powerful people know to command an audience. They sit there, they let other people talk and argue, and then occasionally they utter something that's maybe a little bit ambiguous. And everyone goes, whoa, that's very interesting. Robert said that. What does that mean? You look powerful, right? You give off an air of mystery. You give off an air of control. And so a lot of people have a hard time with it because they think, wow, shouldn't I just be able to say whatever I want and just talk? Well, no, you don't. Not in the social world, not in the work world. It's going to get you in trouble. Learn to control what you talk and learn that there are moments that saying less is actually much more powerful than just yammering on and on.
I was, through my years of business, running businesses and stuff, I came up with this idea, which I've shared with a few people, called your contribution score. And much like we have a credit score, where if we're reckless with our finances, our credit score gets lowered. I think the same applies for the contributions we make in group settings, but just generally the contributions we make. And I came to learn this over time because in one of my offices many years ago in a different company, there was this one individual who in the meeting rooms would, when people were brainstorming, before they'd thought of what they were going to say, they'd interject and say, what about if we we could do like a pop-up with maybe we'll do like, they were thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And what I would observe as the CEO is the minute they spoke, it was almost like people rolled their eyes and tried to cut them off because they developed this contribution score, which says when X person contributes, it's always ill-formed, not productive, and takes too long. But then there's this other guy who I remember from my Manchester office he hardly spoke. And every time he spoke, it wasn't important. So the minute he starts speaking, it's like the room shifts towards him. It's like with bated breath.
Exactly.
And so there's an art of protecting one's contribution score.
Yeah, I remember 50, I would go to meetings with him.
50 Cent?
Yeah, and he would hardly say anything. And people would be trembling. My God, he's not talking. He's not saying he's interested in my ideas. He'd just sit there with this kind of wry smile on his face. And then when he'd say something, they would let out a breath. He's saying something. It'd be very short and curt. But he completely commanded the room because he just sat there as if he wasn't really happy with what people were doing. And it made them compete to make him happy.
Interesting. Really interesting.
He's a master of the 48 laws of power.
Are we recording? 87% of people don't subscribe on the Clips channel.
Yeah.
Taking liberties. What? Just coming for free and then bouncing. What? 87%? 90% of people on the Clips channel don't subscribe.
What does that say?
So I've been doing all this for free. You've been consuming all these clips for free. Listen, we'll make a deal. I'm really going to make these clips amazing and you're in the Clips algorithm on our show. So can I ask a favor? Please, can you hit the subscribe button? If you've watched more than one before, how about that? If you've watched more than one, first one free, buy one, get one free. The second one, I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe. If this is the first time you've seen a clip on this channel, move along. You don't need to subscribe. But if you've seen one before, please do me a favor, help a guy out, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much.